Hello, everyone. I'm Tyler Rosado, and this is the DIVA Checkpoint. This is your go to stop for bold insights, big vision, and real action from leaders across Circle K International. Each episode, my guests and I unpack what's happening, what's next, and how we're showing up to lead, with plenty of fun and maybe a little drama along the way. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the DIVA Checkpoint podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode because this is someone who I wanted on the podcast since season 1, and unfortunately it didn't work out due to scheduling, but I'm so grateful that they had some time to hop on this season, and this is District Governor of New Jersey CKI, Governor Dylan Caraballo. This is also the person who gave me the name for the DIVA Checkpoint. It was something he said at GATSI and kind of mentioned just like the idea of a DIVA Checkpoint. And I was like, that would make a great title for this podcast I'm working on. Dylan is currently serving as the New Jersey CKI District Governor for the 2025-2026 service year. He currently attends Stockton University and is in his final year studying political science with hopes of getting into public policy one day. This is Dylan's 4th year in CKI and 8th year in the Kiwanis family. He's a former Key Clubber and Builders Club member, serving as both general member and in-club leadership roles. I'm super excited for this episode because I think Governor Dylan has some wonderful insights to share, and he has really become one of my best governor pals over the course of this term. So with that being said, let's get right into the episode. Hello, Dylan. Thank you for being on the Diva Checkpoint podcast with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, I'm so glad to have you, especially as we're recording this kind of at the end of the semester and finals and final projects and all those things. So, big thank you again for being on the show. We met going back all the way to when was that? April, like I believe April, like the first week of April, in Indianapolis at GATSI, and we were actually roommates at GATSI. What stood out to you about arriving to GATSI and meeting all the governors for the first time?
Um, it was a very unique experience, like a once in a lifetime type of opportunity, I think. And one of the privileges that you get of like being governor, when you're onboarded and going to Indianapolis is such a pleasure. It was like so much fun to go. And I learned so much while I was out there. Um, it felt like I was surrounded by people who have like been there multiple times or like some of them it was their first time. Um, but overall it was such a great experience. And I think like my biggest takeaway from the weekend was just like kind of taking in those moments like with our other governors and really enjoying our time with them because we don't really get many opportunities during the year to see them in person. We see each other like monthly online and whatnot over Zoom and stuff, but like we don't see each other in person unless it's like for Icon or another in-person event that like we're all together for some reason. But I just, I think it was a very nice weekend. And it was very nice to be with everybody. So yeah, I had lots of fun.
Yes, and I remember that, I think I was there pretty early on. Governor Taylor from Georgia and I pretty much showed up, I think the first couple of folks, and then Lamas and Dylan showed up, and then I want to say Capital Dylan had shown up at that point, and then you had shown up, and we were already clocking in like 3 Dylans. Eventually, we got a fourth Dylan, but it was really cool to just kind of hang out because you were still relatively early too, where like we got to just like kind of hang out before going over to international, and I think that's really why. We have all been able to stay in touch, I think, a little bit better. Have you found yourself, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I think the listeners will want to know. Have you found yourself taking advantage of or leaning on these other governors that you met at GATSI throughout your governor term?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think it's a very different experience for our group of governors just because our district boards don't know like what we face in a day, in a week, in a month, in the year. Um, it is truly like the governor class that knows what pressure they face in their districts, or what they have to accomplish, what they know is like constantly on their minds. There's things that come up during the week that like only the governors are thinking about, like other people on the board may not be thinking about those things. So I think it's like, through learning that, leaning on the other governors to see what they're doing, how they're handling the situation, how they're handling pressure, or kind of how they're um, looking at themselves like in the mirror almost, when they see the governor, like how they're looking at themselves. Um, but I've definitely like leaned on you guys like in our kind of coalition, but like I've leaned on you guys as well as like other governors like New York and Pennsylvania a little bit, and Sophie and New York, but in New England obviously with Elena too. But there's, so many governors that I think that I've been able to lean on, so I'm very grateful for being able to like relate to them, but also receiving support from them as well as like hopefully returning that support. So
Absolutely. And, of course, for me personally, I knew that I wanted to make this podcast about all things CKI. And of course, I can't do this show by myself. Every week I have a guest on, like yourself, and that definitely wouldn't be possible without meeting with governors, kind of letting them in on what my vision is for my district, but also what I saw as like something that could mutually benefit, everyone's district by just elevating the vision of CKI. So I think in a way we all came to the table at GATSI with our own interests for our district in mind, but at the same time looking for ways to support each other. And I think we've done a great job of that, between all the different governors. So that's been really cool. And so I can definitely say that the feeling was mutual. We have all, I think, leaned on each other throughout different processes and as we get to different deadlines for membership or different events. I know we've all, for the most part, recently had our fall events, and I know you all in New Jersey had an amazing fall event. I would love for you to share a little bit about what you guys just held.
yeah, so every year we hold our fall conference called Insight. And Insight is a weekend long kind of conference full of activities and more like fellowship activities for our members. We had about 65 attendees this year. Our goal was 70, so we were just short of our goal, but um, more so like for everybody that was there, like they had a great time. And I think like, we had such a smooth kind of flow with the weekend overall. Last year when I was on the district board, it kind of just felt like a little chaotic at times, and it felt um, more like I was running around the entire time. I wasn't really able to enjoy the weekend as much. But like as governor this year, it's definitely like come full circle. Like I've definitely seen the work come together before the event, and we enjoyed the entire weekend. Not stress-free, but like it was a lot less stressful than last year. Our theme this year was murder mystery, so we definitely like played into different aspects with like the teams were like the clue characters, and then we had different mini games that were like pertaining to finding out like who the killer was, or determining clues to solve different things throughout the weekend. And like it was just, I think the members like had a really great experience just being there. But then they got split into teams, so it was like they got chances to connect with different people in their teams. And it like overall it was a really great weekend for us. And we raised a lot of money for the district too. So I was really, really happy and proud to be able to raise a lot of money. And we usually hold some type of fundraiser at the end of the weekend for the district board to participate in. In the past couple of years, it's been pie in the face. We changed it this year to slime, so we did a slime competition instead. And girl, it was messy. Um, like if you go on the Instagram, you'll be able to see for yourself. But like I got slimed at least like 10 or 11 times with like full on buckets. And it was like it was gross. It was literally so gross. But we raised a lot of money and it's helping out our district. So, it was going to something good for Circle K. But overall I would say it was a really great weekend and we had a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, yeah. I saw tons of posts. It looked like tons of fun. I saw the slime stuff happening. I couldn't repost those because I didn't want to give anyone in my district any ideas for getting slime on me, but I guess for a good cause, I could be coerced into some slime action. But no, that is all really fun. And so, it's always the fun time of year, kind of in that fall kind of few weeks where all the districts are having their events over the course of a couple weekends. And I think one thing that's always on people's minds when planning these events is, of course, trying to get people to attend. And sometimes it's easier to say, let's say something on Zoom or something virtually. So, what is your take on kind of this dynamic we're kind of in right now, where some might say to switch to more like online, more cost-effective events versus in-person events?
I think, well, that's a really good question. I think at least for like New Jersey, every year you kind of have to look at your budget and determine um, on an annual basis, like what you're kind of up against. Like if you're able to afford having an in-person conference versus having an online event. But like at the same time, I think that there's still ways to incorporate like fellowship and service and the leadership aspects, like whether you do it online or in person. If that kind of answers the question. I know like for us this year, we've held all of our events like in person, but like during COVID, most of our events were online during the year, and that was really hard transitioning to that because, it was like you're used to having everything in person, and then how do you transition all of that online? So I think it's like it's you kind of just have to look at it like if it's possible to do it that way. Um, if you can avoid doing it online, I think it's always better just because, the in-person experience is always, I think, the best and what Circle K members deserve. It's what they pay for, and, they're paying for that experience. So I think that, you know, every member deserves an opportunity to like attend an event in person that, they can have that experience. But if something happens and, it has to be online, then either way it will work out. But I really have no preference. I just think it's I think it's better to kind of lean towards having things in person.
Right. I mean, it goes back to like our GATC trainer, right? Like, if we all had just hopped on a Zoom call, I don't think that would have been as effective as, our ability to all go and meet in Indianapolis and have that experience together. Of course, I totally agree with you. There are some cost constraints that will always make Zoom calls and virtual rallies come out more cost effective. But definitely, I think if you're in the position where you could theoretically afford the in-person event, or you could lean that way with some minor cuts versus just immediately saying, well, we'll just do a Zoom event instead. I think there is definitely value in trying to make the in-person stuff work. And it's apparent in whether it's Insight or our fall call. We just the pictures speak for themselves, the videos speak for themselves, the slime speaks for itself. Really, just great opportunities to kind of build those connections. And I'm sure, as governor, you get to see kind of the fruits of that labor with folks getting more invested in their experience with CKI by attending those events. Tell me a little bit about the opportunity you've had as governor to see people get engaged with the district and how you have tried to engage people with your district.
Yeah, so I would say this year, like just witnessing it myself, we've seen a lot of new members come in. We had a lot of people graduate last year, so it kind of opened the opportunity for new members to come into each club. And just seeing like how fast they've taken initiative and like attending district events or attending their club meetings or attending club fundraisers. Just like they want to be hands-on so much this year, and I have loved every minute of it. And even like my home club at Stockton University, we have an influx of new members this year, and they're all like super hands-on. They are loving what they're doing. They're loving what they're partaking in, and they're loving the opportunity to be able to serve others and do good for the community around them. And I think that that's always something to be proud of, and that's something that they should be proud of. And I think that just like, we've had many district events this year, and we've had a handful of like different Circle K members at them. And it's just like just seeing them have as best of a time as they can. Like they're making the best of the event that they could. Um, and really like taking advantage of every opportunity that they get, whether it's attending or, signing up for something that they didn't think was on their list of things to do this year, or, you know, um, making a new friend from another club. We've had a lot of new members make other friends in other clubs as well, which is not something that really we've seen a lot in our district. A lot of our clubs are kind of just friends with each other, and they'll bond like at district events, but like it doesn't stay like that outside of our events. So, um, I would say that we've seen a lot of that this year, and it's been really nice to see. I think one of the biggest things for me is to just encourage people to get involved. Like people are paying dues. You're paying for an opportunity to join Circle K International. Take advantage of scholarships, take advantage of awards. Apply for that club position or that district position that you didn't think you might get or like you weren't worthy of. So I think it's just encouraging people to be more involved this year. And again, that's like something that we've had to work on in the beginning. It was a little rough just because finding new members that were interested right off the bat, obviously was not the easiest thing in working through the summer with them. But, my message has not changed, just staying involved, and, taking advantage of every opportunity that you can, whether it's attending fall conference or, coming to our leadership conference that's happening next month. We're constantly trying to make sure that there's opportunities available for our members in New Jersey, just to ensure that they, will have an opportunity at every corner to get involved. So,
Absolutely. And, I think something that can easily happen for us in this role, right, is to sometimes make decisions about people's availability or people's ability to perform as members or even in specific roles. But I think we also hold a lot of power in encouraging people and influencing people to pursue a certain skill or a certain interest. I know for me, the biggest thing has really been encouraging people to run for positions on our district board coming up in February. And also, even if it's not a district level position, running for a position in their clubs or just to chair a committee in their club, something, because I think that helps gets people more invested in our clubs. And it is something that they're an experience they're paying for through their dues. One thing, of course, that I think is always a challenge, but maybe particularly at this time of year as we're just moving past those initial dues deadlines, is sometimes getting people across the finish line with their dues, right? And so I'd love if you have any insight, not to, no pun intended, but it happened. Any insights on how to kind of help your clubs get across that finish line and get their dues in? I think, of course, there's always tons of interest, and sometimes there's a little more selling that needs to happen to get people to actually submit into our system. So, how have you kind of navigated that this year?
yeah, we've had like a couple of clubs, I would say like maybe two or three clubs out of our district that we've, needed to have a little more support with this year from the district. And I think the biggest thing from our end has just been providing the sufficient information to them about, you know, why to join Circle K International, and working with their Kiwanis clubs to ensure that, we can get their dues as low as possible. So they're not paying the full price, obviously, because, the dues increase this year, has not made it easy on our members to convince them to join, unfortunately. And I think the biggest thing has just been selling Circle K, but also, you know, through that process after selling it to their members and giving our presidents and our officers, information that would be useful to them. Really, what we've done is just keep checking in with them too, just to make sure that they're on track with meeting their deadlines and getting their information in. Because obviously that's very important as well. A lot of our clubs have had some issues just with like convincing members here and there to pay dues, but like we haven't had too many issues, I would say, in our district. Um, but I think, just providing them with the information and then, checking in with the clubs leading up to the deadlines and helping and assisting wherever needed, that's kind of been our go-to kind of thing this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe you have a initiative in your district, something to do with the recruitment week that I'd love for you to talk a little bit about and how that's helping with your membership goals.
Yeah, so we had a recruitment week. It didn't work out as planned, unfortunately. Just because I think with the timing of everything, I just don't think that there was enough time for the clubs to plan for it. It wasn't something we had talked about right off of the bat once, the turnover happened for the new year. Um, but it was something that was like a conversation over the summer and kind of um came out, towards the end of the summer. So unfortunately, I don't think it left a lot of clubs time to plan ahead for participating. But the week was designed initially to help clubs recruit and kind of use it as like a district kind of competition. It was like a head-to-head competition for whoever could recruit the most members in the week. And the day was or the week was kind of set up in a daily basis. You would just fill out a check-in form or a recap form, and you would list all of your ways that you helped recruit for the day. And all of that would be calculated at the end, and we would total up the winners. Um, but, in the end we were planning on giving out like some prizes and stuff just from the district and stuff at our fall conference, but again, did not work out in the way we intended. So, perfectly fine. Sometimes you try things and it doesn't work out. And that's perfectly fine. But that was kind of our intention with it. Just to help and kind of give another opportunity for clubs to feel motivated to recruit. But I think with where it fell in the semester, it was kind of a little difficult just because it was right before the early bird deadline, and um, a lot of clubs were kind of either in the midst of meeting or they were like already having events during that week. So it was kind of hard for them to put more focus into participating. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and of course, I think that speaks to a lot of the governor position, right? That, of course, there are a lot of initiatives that we would love to launch within a year, but at the same time, it is only a year and we only have so much time. I think also it speaks a bit to the resilience required in the position. I know in New Jersey, it sounds like you all have a lot of opportunities where your CKI board can meet with your Kiwanis board, even at like a district level and things like that. And that's something that I wanted to emulate in the Carolinas, but it didn't really come to fruition as of yet. There's definitely talks and collaboration happening, but like full blown kind of like in person board meetings, things like that haven't really come to fruition yet. That's something that, I was trying to do, didn't turn out how I wanted. kind of disappointing, but like I mentioned, the resilience component. And so I think one thing that would be great for our listeners to hear about is just like how do we handle those kind of tough moments and how do we like have resilience in those moments that we don't get defeated and give up, but we keep moving in the role.
Think it's just important to remember that, again, you're only in the position for a year and you're still kind of like learning through the position as you're progressing. So you're not going to know how to solve every problem. You're not going to know how to plan every single event. There may be logistics like where you don't you don't know. You may hit a brick wall and you just don't know how to solve the problem. Um, and I think like it's important to lean on your board in situations like that too, and always ask them for support, for advice, in ways that, they can help, I think is important. But for things where it fails, as the governor, I feel like you just have to keep pushing. It's very important because it's like then the next thing is going to come up and you're going to have to plan for that. So, I feel like being governor is kind of like a clock. You're like just constantly moving in a circle. You're thinking about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. You're in a million places at once. And like I didn't hear it enough from my successor or my predecessor, and I will make sure to tell my successor this, but like the year moves so fast and you will get dragged in so many ways, and you just have to learn to kind of roll with the punches and kind of keep it pushing with everything you do because at the end of the day, again, you only have a year in the position, so you can't get hung up on something if, something doesn't work out. Um, you just have to kind of brush it away and, keep moving because your board wouldn't want you to get stuck up on something that the board couldn't enact on in the year. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though it is only a year, we do get pulled in all sorts of different directions. And one thing that I would love to chat about a little bit too is, we always talk about maybe a CKI work sort of work-life balance. But of course, we have, say, like college life as students, and then also we have our personal lives too. And I know you and I are both in relationships, and that's another thing on our plates that we deal with. And CKI is a particularly, I think, troubling thing to balance sometimes for relationships, just because I think our hours are almost like I like to call it like the dating time. Like we have a lot of evening night calls and like dinner time calls and things like that just because it works better with our schedules. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, like how you've balanced those things, how you've come to balance those things. Because I know, at least for me, it was not always, it didn't come easy at first. But I think that's something that we should talk about more just so that people know that it is possible to navigate.
Yeah. Me and my man have been together since January. So, um, it was long before our convention and when I decided to run for governor. I was still a district chair at the time, so very different position, very different roles and responsibilities and stuff like that. But nonetheless, like from the moment that we started dating, there was so much support, so much love, and that still has like continued. He's somebody that I can constantly lean on, in either making decisions or like seeking advice. There are times when like I don't feel like I should approach anybody on the board about something, or it's just not the right time to approach anybody on the board about something. So I end up approaching him and get his take on it. And he's always so thoughtful in his responses that he gives back to me. So, his support and like, that love, I can tell is like there from him. And we are both in Circle K. We are both in the same home club. So, it's like we see each other all the time. We're always around each other. So, obviously balancing college life outside of Circle K, we're always with each other. when we're not swamped in assignments or anything. But like when it comes to Circle K, I would say that, just knowing that like he's there to support me, it means like the absolute world just because um you know without him, I don't think I would have the same kind of support system. And like I know that there's always somebody in my corner. So it's just like I really, really appreciate, the love and the support from him. And it's been like almost a year now. So it's just kind of crazy that it's like he's kind of been on this entire journey with me being governor. I started and he'll finish with me. So it's like a very full circle moment. Well, will be a full circle moment at our convention. Um, but knowing that he's been there to support me since, day one has just kind of been um it's been so nice to have and to appreciate that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it I love what you mentioned about like sometimes you do have to talk about something kind of removed from CKI because I think as governors we are almost intended to, for better or for worse, live and breathe CKI for our term. Like it's kind of always on, right? And so having someone to go to that's like, okay, you're even if you're in the organization or even if you're familiar with things, you're still kind of more so removed from, I guess I'll say like the politics of it and like, can give fresh eyes or a fresh look at something. I know I've dragged my partner to plenty of CKI events and Kiwanis events, and he's become very much an honorary member at this point. And having that opportunity, having someone that can just like fill in and also know when you're reaching your limit. Because I also think as governors, we kind of tell ourselves that we're supposed to hit our limit and then keep going. Whereas sometimes I think we need to realize we've hit our limit and take a seat for a moment, take a breather. So yeah, so totally great points there. And speaking about your college experience, also, I know you're studying political science, correct?
yeah.
Awesome. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about where you see that going and how maybe CKI has informed some of that. Because I know for a lot of people, political science can look like a lot of different things. But I think there are plenty of ways that CKI and being in the K family can apply to that career field.
Yeah. So initially, like I wanted to be a teacher when I started my college journey. I was going to school to become a history teacher, and that did not work out. And then I ended up kind of thinking about dropping out of college and either going to like trade school or just looking at uh staying at home and working for a while and then kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. But then I figured out that I wanted to pursue political science. At my community college, I took a couple of classes just pertaining to like American politics, American history, and it like I've always been kind of like a history person, I think, and always somebody who is like keeping up with the headlines, somebody who's keeping up with like political news, and like what's been going on. Obviously, we see it nowadays, but like just with you know taking that into consideration, I was like, maybe this could be something like I could explore. So I think through realizing that and like going through the steps now, like in being a poli sci major, I've discovered that it's something I really, really want to pursue. A lot of people in my major go to law school, and I'm still kind of debating if I would consider law school. It it's a very big commitment to like, just drop everything and kind of go to law school. Um, so I definitely would have to like give it some thought and think it through. Um, but I also know that there's people who get really, really nice jobs without a law degree, in poli sci, and like I wouldn't want to run for like Congress or run for like a position or anything. Part of my goal is just to kind of see if I can get into more of like staffing in Washington, D.C., at one of the agencies down there or, on Capitol Hill in the White House. it would be really nice to kind of get my foot in the door up here in New Jersey first, and then, maybe work my way down there eventually. But like that is the goal right now. The goalpost could always move, and I could always be thinking about something, tomorrow or next week, next month, next year. Um, I believe I still have a full year left because I transferred over the summer. So by doing that, because I was a business administration major in the spring at my other college. So when I transferred in the fall, I ended up kind of adding a semester. So now I'm looking at a full year if I do an internship with it. So, I have plans. I'm just trying to kind of solidify where I would want to be once I graduate. The political world is very, very, very messy right now, and it's a good time to get involved, but it's a very bad time to kind of like um do something you'll regret down the line. Like, you know, I don't want to run for position and then suddenly, I'm on the news every week saying something dumb, like I don't want to be somebody that's like that. I feel like I would want to be somebody who like feels confident in the position that I'm in, knows that I'm making an impact and serving my community still. And I know through like Circle K that I've had plenty of time and experience and patience with myself and learning how I can serve my community through not only this position but from other positions. Um, so I definitely think I'm gonna explore more in depth like what positions I would want to seek once I'm done with college in the political world, but at least for right now, I'm still kind of determining where I want to be. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think that just speaks to how Circle K is a great place to navigate those things. I know it's often framed a lot of times that CKI is a good supplement once you figured out what you're going to do. Like, I know for myself, I'm dedicated to the teaching route and education space. Of course, it's like that's a pretty natural connection. If folks are really dedicated to environmental sciences, they know that going down a route about doing service for the environment is a pretty solid connection. But we still have plenty of opportunity in our organization to also explore things and explore where we could apply those things. And I think that across the board, whether you were to run for Congress or, run a campaign or even working in more of a bureaucratic role, like I think all of those things have points that you develop skills in with CKI, especially in the governor role, but even just in planning events and organizing opportunities to volunteer, right? Like, I think one of the greatest benefits for anyone who's interested in pursuing some sort of political science type role, from politician down to even just trying to volunteer on a campaign, is that our clubs are so rooted in our communities and invested in our communities. And I think that might be one of the best benefits to our organization is how we have those roots. And I'm excited to see where you end up, of course, because I know how well you're performing as New Jersey governor, and I think you will find something to be highly successful in whichever route you do end up going in. So I'm excited to see it. And switching gears, of course, into something a little more lighthearted, because I know in today's times talking about politics and things can get very heavy very fast. But I'd love to switch gears into something that we both enjoy very much, and that is, of course, music and some of the pop icons of our time. Um, if you had to pick your top three kind of pop divas, who would you kind of put on your roster?
well, number one, I would say like tied for number one is Beyonce and Lady Gaga. And
Mm.
like and it's like a tie because every week it kind of changes. Like this week I'm listening to more of Lady Gaga, but last week I was listening to Beyonce up and down. So it could be either or. Um, but if there was like a number three, or like a solid number two, I would say SZA is like a solid number two, and number three definitely has to be like Miley Cyrus. I would say I'm a good Miley Cyrus fan.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, that
that's developed like in the last few years, but like I was a Hannah Montana girly too, so it kind of fits in, but like whatever. Uh
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was never I don't think I've ever even seen an episode of Hannah Montana, I'll just be honest. But I do think in the past couple years I have found myself listening to more Miley Cyrus, which I think was kind of a shock to me. But I think I don't know, is she even releasing new music these days? I know what was that one song she put out that everyone was listening to? It was like Flowers or something. Like I know she's made she's made her return.
Girl, Flowers was 2 years ago.
So that's the most recent song of hers I can recall. But I think she's making a comeback. I think it depends. Certain Miley eras maybe we'll let stay in history, but I think we can bring some of her music into 2026. But definitely big on SZA. That's I think up there on my list as well. Especially to me, SZA is like one of my favorite. This is gonna be such a controversial take. She's one of my favorite like Christmas artists because I always have to have my SZA music on, especially during like the month of December into January. Like, I guess maybe it's not so much Christmas music, but like winter music, like that. I don't know. It has just always in my head made sense that SZA is like a winter sort of artist. Um, but definitely, of course, up there, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, amazing, amazing. I would say Lady Gaga is always, I think, a step ahead of Beyonce for me, just because my love for Beyonce is a newer love. I think I really got on the Beyonce train post like Renaissance. But then Lady Gaga, I mean, I remember like sneaking on like the Kindle, like when I was like 5 or 6, watching like the music videos, just being so into it. So Lady Gaga has been with me for a long time. And so I want us to dive a little bit more into her discography. Um, and we're going to play a little game. So, of course, we've talked about these different events that we have to go to, right? We have our fall events, so like Insight or Fall Call, and we have our district events coming up, like Decon. Sometimes we have our service projects as well, district-wide service projects, and then of course international convention, which you should all, those of you listening who are members, plan to attend in July in Dallas, Texas. And so I would love for us to go ahead and plan what albums we're going to be listening to on our way to all of these events. So if you could tell me which of the albums, and we can do a refresher. We're talking about the main core of Lady Gaga's discography, so the seven, right? We have The Fame Monster, Born This Way, Art Pop, Joanne, Chromatica, and Newly Mayhem. Which one are we listening to on our way to our fall event and why?
I think, and this is my opinion, it has to be Mayhem. Mayhem like has been my like ride or die album this year, I think. Since it came out, that like has been both my number one album and like all of the songs have been my top songs this year. So I think it speaks volume to like how many times I've listened to each song on the album. Um, but literally, it's so funny because on my way to my fall conference, I was listening to Mayhem. So I think it just fits well because um, I don't know, like something about it just speaks to me and says fall. Like compared to her other albums, like some of her albums are more for like the club or like they're more like lavish songs. Like, you really have to get your money up if you want to be on listening to that album. Um but Mayhem, like I feel like I could have fun with. I can let loose, I can kind of be creative, in listening to it. And like even like when I was listening to an interview about like why she created the album, it was kind of intended to be like how you interpret it. So it's like, just being creative in the expression of the album itself and kind of letting loose through listening to it. So I think, I would definitely listen to Mayhem on my way there.
Absolutely. Mayhem is an amazing album, and I really do think it blends a lot of the vibes of the different albums into one project, which I think is really cool. I definitely would think Joanne might be the one for me for Fall Call, just because our event very much likes to lean into the fact that it's outdoorsy. Like, we're always in the woods or something. And I know that era for Lady Gaga was a little more on the countryside of things. And so I think to me that connection happens. Next, what album are we listening to on our way to our district conventions?
Oh God. I think for me, it would be Joanne because I am like sobbing the entire way there. Or because we're talking about her main seven. So I can't include A Star is Born, but like A Star is Born is really good too. Like her specific songs on from that movie and on that soundtrack are really, really good. Um, but I would say like those two mainly. I, just because like those two make me want to cry. Like every time I listen to them, I get so emotional. Because she's so like she gets so raw in those albums, and um, I don't know, like they were kind of around the same time of each other when she filmed like A Star is Born, and then I think she released Joanne like a couple years before that, but like they were around the same time. Um, and I know like she went through a transitional phase in her life too, where she kind of got out of that like early 2010s era, and was like becoming like her most authentic self at the time. And I think like, just she was so raw and so personal in those albums, and I don't know, I can connect to that so much. So I'd probably put those on, probably put a mix on the way to convention with those.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, here at the Diva Checkpoint podcast, we make our own rules. So I think I'm also gonna go with A Star is Born soundtrack, even though it's not in the main seven, because you do bring up a great point that it is gonna be an emotional time, and I think it's something that I'm trying to not think about as much. That saying goodbye to the governor position is probably gonna be challenging, not just because we are running our district conventions, but because we do kind of, put the bookend on our year. So definitely I think that was a really good album to listen to on the way to Decon. And then finally, what are we listening to on our way to Icon? I guess we might be listening to this one on the plane for us here out on the East Coast. But what album are we putting in?
Listen, I'm like between three albums right now. I was obsessed with Chromatica. And like I don't know, there was something about it that gave like very much like club vibes and very much dystopian. I don't know. Like I really really enjoyed the album, and I know it's not like a favorite among her fans. Um but I would say like a mix of that and probably the Fame too, because songs like Money Honey, Beautiful Dirty Rich, like her good ones too, like her most popular ones off the album. um I don't have to list them all because you can tell, you can see all of them. um but like songs like that like really would be something that I think I listen to on the way out there, just because I know like I'm about to have fun, and like that album was also like I know she had a lot of fun making that album, as well as like all of her albums. Like all of her albums just top tier. I could go on all day, but like, you know, I think probably a mix of those two albums. Yeah.
Right. Well, I would definitely say it's a hard pick. So I'll just default and say, we've got a long flight from here to Dallas, so we'll just listen to them all and put that to bed. I know we are definitely running out of time here, and I want to respect your time and thank you again for being on the podcast. And I want to wrap up with the question that I ask all my guests, which is, what is the biggest diva moment that you've experienced, whether it be from CKI or anything in the K family experience?
Well, there's been a lot this year, I would say, both in New Jersey, but like internationally. But I would say like the moment for me, has to be when we were at Gatsby, and I believe was it Friday night? I think it was Friday. No, it had to have been Saturday night.
I think, yeah.
It was Saturday night, yeah. Um, we snuck out and we took a little field trip to a nearby McDonald's and got food. And we technically shouldn't have done that, but like it's okay. It's okay.
Well, and here's the thing, because right, like we were adults, so we were not legally obligated to be staying at the hotel. I think the reason that it was a little more crazy was because it was raining and we did not have any sort of motor vehicle transportation because we were all visiting Indianapolis. And
We were
so
all
I
in schools of Indianapolis, like we did not live there at all.
yeah,
So
so we went walking in the rain. Did we have an umbrella? I feel like we may have had one umbrella,
we
and we had an umbrella in a dream, I think, and made it work. But we were just like, we just wanted to be outside. So I almost totally forgot about that moment until you mentioned it. So that I think was a big and bold moment from both of our CKI experiences. So thank you for sharing that. And with that, thank you so much again for being on the podcast. And I wish you the best rest of your governor term.
thank you, and thank you for having me on. Um, I really like just want to say you've done such a great job with the podcast, and I've loved watching and seeing some of the episodes, and I think it's been like very unique and like something that none of the other districts have really thought about. So, I want to commend you on taking advantage of the opportunity early on in the year. And it's been a great podcast to look forward to. So, thanks for having me on.
Of course, and thank you so much. You take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Diva Checkpoint podcast with me, Tyler Rosado. For more episodes, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you've got something to say, we want you to be a guest on our show. Head over to bit.ly/CKI podcast for more information. Until next time, keep leading loud, CKI.